What's up, people? Welcome to episode 1 of the poker vlog. We're out here in Vancouver, Canada. Today we're going to be playing some 1-3, 400 max buy-in at the Parq casino. Let's get into it. So in this hand we pick up 7-6 of hearts under the gun. We open it up to $15. Button calls. Small blind now 3 bets to 50 bucks. Playing 500 or so. The big blind overcalls the 3 bet. He covers us all. We come along for the ride and the button falls. Coming to the flop, there's about 165 in the middle. Comes down 4 spades, 5 of diamonds, 7 of diamonds. Small blind checks. Big blind bets $50, about 1/3 pot. We've an easy call here with top pair and an open ender, especially to this small size. Big blind is going to have a lot of 10s through queens that he wants to bet small for some protection, get some value. Maybe has a hand like ace king, ace queen, he's just taking a stab with diamonds or some backdoor diamonds. We have a pretty easy call here with top pair and the open ender, so we come along and the small blind folds. We go heads up to a turn, it's the king of spades, bringing in a second flush draw. The pot's now standing at $265 and the big blind bets $75. It's a small bet, slightly less than 1/3. Usually you'd expect a hand like ace king to bet a bigger size here, especially with the draws out there. You can still have a lot of 10s through queens, choosing a small size, and as he doesn't want to let me see a free card, I can still get some value from worse hands with this size. Again, we have a pretty easy call. I prefer this type of hand to make the call with than say a hand like 8s, 9s or 10s. And we have 7-6 suited here. We can make some 2 pairs, some trips. We have an open ender, so we're going to have a lot more equity if we are behind a hand like 10s through queens, even a hand like ace king. And there's a lot of rivers which are good for us. We can also bluff him off his hand. River now comes to 6 of diamonds, giving us 2 pair. All in. Pot is $415 and the big blind bet's $125. Again, he goes for a small size in here. I can't see him ever really having a flush. When it comes out like this, he's going to have ace king of diamonds, ace queen of diamonds. It's 2 combos of flushes that have us beat. When he just cold calls the 3 bet over the big blind, we don't expect him to ever have any 2 pairs here. He shouldn't have any sets. Even if he does just call kings pre and doesn't 4 bet, he's never going to bet these tiny sizings across multiple streets. So generally, I think this is an easy spot for us. We have an easy shove all in for value. If this was a single raise pot, I don't think our hand would be strong enough on a 4-liner to a straight and with a flush out there. But this is important when the definition of his range comes into play, because when he cold calls the 3 bet from the big blind, he's not going to have a bunch of the suited connectors, the small pairs. These hands shouldn't be in his range. So I think it's a spot where we should be pretty happy to shove on the river. We shove all in for $325 total. He goes into the tank for about 30 seconds or so before eventually letting it go. So in this next hand, there's 3 limps in early position, and we look down at ace queen off in the hijack. We bump it up to $20. Small blind calls, big blind calls. The 2 original limpers call, and the 3rd limper decides to go all in for $62. We have a decision to make here. We're obviously going to raise. The sizing, we end up deciding on $145. Our logic is that when everyone just calls to 20, no one can have that strong of a hand, or they would have put in a 3 bet. But looking back at it now, with the amount of money in the pot with the overcalls, I think 145 might be slightly on the small size. We maybe should have went to between 160 and 180. Because what happens is everyone folds except the small blind who decides to come
145.
along. Going to the flop, there's 392 in the middle. Middle position is already all in, and we get a nice favourable flop. Comes ace of spades, jack of spades, deuce of clubs. Small blind checks to us. We go with a really small bet here, $50. I think we're just going to be golden on this flop so much. don't need to make it big. We're happy to keep in hands with his worst ace-x. Maybe he calls with a hand like Jack Queen suited, King Jack suited. When you just, the way he plays his hand, when he calls a 20 and then calls the 4-bet, he's probably not a good player. So I don't think we want to go too big and get too many folds out of him. We're happy for him to peel with a lot of hands. Unfortunately, he lets it go. The board runs out clean, and we win against King Queen off on a King 5 run out. So in this next hand, there's 2 limps in early position. We make a 15 in the cutoff with Ace 5 of diamonds. Small blind calls, big blind calls, and the limper in early position calls. Flop comes down 8 of spades, 3 of spades, deuce of hearts. 63 in the middle, and the early position limper decides to lead for 20 when it's checked to him. We call, and the 2 others fold. Generally, he shouldn't have a very strong hand here when he leads, especially with his sizing. I'd expect some top pairs to bet a bigger sizing with the flush draw out there. Even some over pairs that he might limp call, like pocket 9s, especially at these stakes. Players like limp call in these hands, you don't raise too much. And I think on this board with the flush draw, with some overcards that can come, if he had one of these hands, he'd probably choose a bigger size. It's likely he has some pocket pairs, 4s through 7s, maybe some flush draws, and we beat the flush draws by the nut flush draws. We also have a gutter, so I think we have an easy call here. Turn comes 3 of clubs, it's 103 in the middle, and he bets $40, 40% pot. We call it again. I think our hand could still be good against some of his flush draws, bar the nut flush draws. I'd expect sets to bet bigger on the flop, especially at these stakes. In the lower stakes, when there's flush draws and some straight draws out there, the villains will usually bet big with hands like this that are vulnerable because they're scared of a flush coming or straight coming. So I think that reduces the likelihood he has a really strong hand. Doubt he has a full house. And the turn 3 reduces the number of combos of pocket 3s, and I don't expect them to show up with any 2 pairs. So I think given that we could be good, we're getting a decent price. We also still have the gutter, and ace is probably also going to be good, by the ace of spades. We decide to peel. River comes the 9 of spades, bringing into flush draw. There's 183 in the middle, and he bets 150. Bets close to pot here. I'd expect he just has a flush. Don't think he has any other hand, don't think he's ever bluffing. We just have an easy fold. So in this hand, you look down at 7-8 of hearts. Under the gun limps, we make it 15, 2 seats over. Middle position calls, small blind calls, under the gun calls. Flop comes down 8 of clubs, 6 of hearts, 4 of spades. $60 on the middle. Small blind checks. Under the gun leads out for 10. It's a tiny bet into $60. It's nearly essentially a check. We have a decision to make here. Do we want to call? Do we want to raise? I think we probably want to raise. Call in 10, I think, opens us up to the 2 guys behind coming along with us with top pair. It's likely we might have the best hand. We don't want people to get some free cards. So we bump it up to $30. Small blind calls. And under the gun calls. Turn comes down queen of clubs. There's now 150 in the pot. Small blind checks, under the gun checks, and I think we have a pretty easy check back here. I don't see any merit in betting. We're probably just going to get called by a lot of better 8s. There's not too many worse hands that are going to call. Like maybe we can bet small, but with 2 other players in the pot, it's likely we probably don't have the best hand, although we might be good sometimes, but we still have a good shot. So I think betting and getting raised off our equity would also be quite poor, so I think we have a pretty easy check back here. River comes to 4 diamonds, pair on the bottom card. Undergun now leads for 75. Undergun players, bit of an old dude, haven't seen him bluff so far. Don't really think he is doing this as a bluff. He probably has, he can have some bigger pocket pairs that he limp called pre, because all dudes like to play them this way pre-flop. He might even have a hand just like ace-8 that's betting for value. I don't know if he's good enough to bet second pair for value, but I'm not very confident that we have the best hand. and we also have small blind behind us still to act, so we decide just to let it go, and so does the small blind. So in this hand, we just returned from a break, have to post out a big blind to play, and what a time to return. We pick up pocket aces. Early position limps, middle position calls, and we bump it up to 18 to play. Button decides to call, small blind checks his cards, puts out a raise to $60. It's a small 3-bet out of position, even more small so considering that the button has called. It's way too small of a sizing. He should be looking at going at least 80-90 here out of position. But anyways, we're happy to have him in. Early position decides he wants to throw a stack in of $75. It's more great news for us. There's no better feeling in poker than when you have pocket aces and there's just chips flying into the middle from every angle. Usually in this spot we would want to 4-bet, as we don't really want to take it 4 ways to a flop with aces, especially when we're deeper. But everyone's kind of shallow here, so we don't mind as much. And what makes us deviate from sticking in the 4-bet is we're taking them in before a decision. We don't want to just snap call or snap raise to 75 and we have aces here. We want to look like we have a bit of a tough decision on our hands. So while we're in the tank, I noticed the button counts his chips and stacks them up like he's going to go all in. So we decide this time we're going to take the risk. We'll just flat and hopefully let the button lose his mind and do something crazy. So we just flat to 75, and just as we hope, button announces all in and sticks in a stack of $250. Small blind now sticks his stack in of 200, and we have a happy fist bump call covering everyone here with the pocket aces. It's a 4-way all in. The board runs out 9-9-5, Queen 2. So we're only losing to a 9 here, or some full houses, but it's very likely we have the best hand. We turn up our hand. It gets announced that it's good. Small blind shows he'd pocket kings, so he was on the bad end of a cooler, and we scoop a massive pot. You love to see it. So we wrap up the session here. We were in for $400 and cash out $11.70 for a total profit of $770. Thanks for tuning in. If you can give it a like, a share, subscribe, that'd be great. And I'll see you soon for episode 2.